Okay, so we've covered centre back. Malik Shaw's going to come in from Milan for us, and Martin Fernandez. He'll be in from Porto at right back. So now we move on to right wing. So it's an area where we think Leon Bailey is probably going to be moving on. Seems to be dragging on that, so we'll wait and see. But basically, it's an area where Villa needs something new, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. It's hard to say, right? Like we also talk about Emery being this like recoverer of players' careers, and if he wasn't playing for Leon Bailey, you would look at his figures of 2 seasons and go, "What a player!" And you would look at his figures of last season and say, "Okay, underwhelming, but Emery could get the most out of him." So sometimes you think, "Well, hold on, if Emery is capable of that, if that's what Emery does, like why wouldn't it work there?" But I think it does feel like Bailey's race is a bit run, and he obviously he's possibly we're looking for somebody of a younger profile and lower wages. I have looked at right wingers against Bailey's stats of 2 seasons ago,
Mhm.
kind of to see how they matched up. But I mean, it really does show you that he did have an exceptional season, both eye test and statistically 2 seasons ago. It's just frustrating that you can't get that out of him, or something close to that out of him every year. I think there is an element of super consistent wingers aren't really a thing, except
No.
for the very, very high, very expensive level. I've got two options, two
Mhm.
very different options. I have compared them a little bit to Malik Fofana at Lyon because I was a little bit interested in him, but I think he'll be priced out of our range. And Johan Bakayoko and Igor Paixão from the Dutch league, who we've been linked with a little bit. We always try in this series to not pick a player that we've had any link to. So I've
Mhm.
kept them in the back of my mind and compared two players to them. And those are Evann Guessand at Nice and Dylan Bakwa at Strasbourg, both out of the French league, but very, very different styles of right winger.
Mhm.
Um, Arguably, is Guessand a right winger? We'll come on to that. But a lot of this will depend on, well, sorry, a lot of this will depend, like somebody's going to listen to me and make a decision based on it. I don't know exactly what would be the ideal profile. I'd say Dylan Bakwa is more like a Bailey. Hug the touchline, stay wide, and try and beat a player. Evan Guessand is a sort of right wing striker hybrid. Again, talking about having flexibility, useful, I think, to have somebody who could sort of play nine, albeit not an out and out nine. So yeah, those are my two options. 24, Evan Guessand, Dylan Backward 22, a little bit younger, both transfer market values of about 25 million euros. Um, but yeah, very different profiles. Evan Guessand, big, tall, strong, definitely looks more like a nine than a winger. Dylan Bakwa, more diminutive. I think it's partly just age. He's a bit slimmer. And yeah, Guessand, direct, goal threat, plays in the half space. His sort of ball carrying numbers don't excel compared to a right winger, but when you watch his highlights, it's because he gets the ball quickly, moves it on quickly, and goes in behind,
Mhm.
like you might expect a nine to, but out of a like wide position.
Mhm.
So he works really well with a striker that's like occupying centre backs to then go in between left back and left centre back, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So they're just super direct, super transitional, can beat a player for pace, but also strength. Will take a player on, but doesn't wait for it out on the right wing to come to him and then try and take on his fullback from there. He's more like, come, get it, give it back, spinning behind. A little bit more like creative, I would say, in that sense. Dylan Bakwa, very much the opposite. Stays high and wide, wants the ball to feet, doesn't look to go in behind much. Where he excels is there's a few players that you see like this who don't see they seem to rely on they actually stop with the ball and then in their movement and manipulation of the ball get the defender to move in the wrong direction and then beat them.
Mhm.
Very much a stop-start type player who's trying to take players on all the time with a decent success rate. Yeah, and like I say, those are two quite different profiles, and how they show up in stats. I've looked at creation, so shot creating actions, goal creating actions, key passes, and take ons and their success. what I've called execution. So how many actually goals and assists are they getting? Are they overperforming their XG? So that's an odd statistic in that you could be like, well, he only had 5 XG and he scored 10, and that's brilliant. Sometimes that belies that he won't be able to keep recreating that, if that
The
makes
the,
sense.
the John Duran conundrum.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. And then lastly, defensive contribution, because I do think Bailey is particularly weak at that. You don't get a lot out of him in terms of winning the ball in any third of the pitch, really. And you see Matty Cash sometimes has Bailey ahead of him covering a winger. You don't feel like he's confident. He does have
Mhm.
to sort of half cover that. It would be great to get an improvement on that as well.
It,
So yeah, creation. Again, they profile quite differently. So even though they're doing it in different ways, both are achieving about 3.2 shot creating actions per 90. Compare that to Bailey of that season, who was on 4.2. He dropped off an awful lot this season, but
yeah.
he was really creative in that season and
It,
creating a goal creating action kind of every other game.
I mean, it's worth remembering that one. He's had 4 seasons at Villa. The third season, the year before last, where he was one of the best attacking players in world football for amazing, really, given that the other 3 seasons he's just not been that. But yeah,
Yeah, again, you've got no idea of knowing, right? But he does feel like a sort of mentality player a little
yeah, he
bit.
does.
He very early on, you can sort of see a sort of when he's up that Everton game, he looks electric. But a lot more you see he goes down softly under a challenge. He thinks he should have won, doesn't get it, and his head goes a little bit.
Hmm.
So yeah, that one season it just seemed to click for him. In a way, like you see that for strikers and forwards all the time, right? But um, yeah, going back to the stats, while he outperformed everybody on shot creating actions, goal creating actions, like I say, a goal creating action every other game for Bailey. Bakker and Guessand are getting up to more like zero point 0.6 rather than zero point 0.5. So doing it in different ways, but definitely creating goals for their teams. Guessand much more directly, much more in the box. A lot of those goal creating actions will be him scoring them.
Mhm.
Um, Bakker much more laying on for teammates. Key passes, Bailey, 2.26 a game that season. Again, a decent drop off to Bakker at 1.7 and a bigger drop off to Guessand at 1.1. But like I say, that comes down to goal scoring for Guessand, I would say. If you look at goals and assists per 90, again, Bailey was getting 0.83, so a goal or assist in most games essentially in that season.
Mhm.
Guessand at 0.7, still good numbers. Backward dropping off to every other game, which is those aren't terrible figures. Don't get me wrong. Bakayoko, similar. Malik Fofana at Lyon, who big teams are buzzing around, similar, um, albeit not on the level of Bailey for that wonderful 12 months.
God, it's incredible. It's just to think that how good he was for that year. If only he could do that all the time. So Evan Guessand's an interesting one because I feel like I've seen him linked around a bit this summer. Am I right to think that?
Yeah, it does seem to have been talked around with a few different teams because he's just, like I say, he's like a reasonably not unique profile, but his profile is a bit different. It, it's hard to know which sort of teams he would fit into.
Hmm.
FBref, the website I use, does compare. It shows you statistically most similar players across the top 5 leagues, and he comes across as Semenyo-like, kind of
Okay.
Toma-like. So, like you said, a direct driver of the ball, gets
Right.
it and moves it quickly. Um, I think West Ham is the strongest link I've seen for Guessand.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, nothing is materialized as far as I'm aware in terms of a concrete Fabrizio
Yeah.
Romano.
God help him if he goes to West Ham. Not
Well, yeah,
feeling.
they've got some kudos money in the bank now, haven't they? So they they do need to sort themselves out. I know West Ham fans are. I've seen the response to the kudos move, and they're not happy.
No. But Bakhwar at Strasbourg, again, that's not really a player I know too much about, really. So
No,
he's
definitely
young,
one that
coming
came
through.
out from the stats for me. Like, I hadn't heard of him. Strasbourg's a difficult team to deal with because they are Blue Co and Chelsea.
Yeah.
He was in pre-Blue Co, I believe, so I don't think he's like a Blue Co project. Sometimes you look at these players and they look exceptional at Strasbourg, and you sort of know there's almost no point because he's being groomed for Chelsea. Like,
Yeah.
it's difficult to get those players. I don't think Backward is one of those per se, albeit I'm sure they'd try and hold on to him if they felt he would progress. But he's more to compare him to a Premier League player. It's funny because what is interesting about him is flexibility. He's played right wing back, right midfield, right wing, and also left wing. FBref lets you compare him to anybody he has played in a position with. So he compares to all of Frimpong, Kulusevski, and Kluivert. And
Right.
I also see him described as Madueke-like in his kind of stand the player up and beat them.
Mhm.
So he's relatively raw, flexible though, definitely very talented in close control and dribbling, and a sort of potential big weaknesses is he's very left-footed. I think you would probably say that about Bailey. Is he as left-footed as Traore? Hopefully not.
Right.
But yeah, I think he's more of a. I don't think we want him to come in and expect him to start and play 90 minutes week in, week out as our number one right winger. Whereas I think Guessand, I think you'd find a place for him in the team most weeks.
Now, I've just gone searching through the London Lions treasury, and I've managed to pluck out 50 million quid. And I've said, go buy a right winger for Aston Villa. Which one would you think you'd do?
Ooh. So we're not worried about money now.
No, we're not worried about money for this one.
I think the boat has sailed on Mbeumo.
Yeah.
So it's in the Premier League, done it in and out. Um, yeah, I think that's a. Well, I said the boat sailed. He's not moved, has he? But I think he's out of our price range. Everyone admits, but I think that's the one you do.
If you had to choose
And funny
between,
enough, I guess I arguably Guessand is closer to that profile. You wouldn't call Mbeumo a touchline hugging
no.
beater. He does seem to be a kind of get the ball and drive and work well with other players and arrive in the box and score goals, right? So
Hmm.
almost like you've made my mind up for me during this. I was going to say let's go for Backwell, but I think I'm going to say let's go for Guessand.
Guessand. Okay, right. Well, so that's Guessand has joined us from Nice, Martin Fernandez from Porto, and Malik Chow from Milan.